This meeting is going to be conducted electronically pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 16. Therefore, I need to ask for a motion that conducting this meeting electronically is necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the coronavirus.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Y'all hear me clearly now? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, and motion carries. I'm going to call on Commissioner Dodd, if you would, for approval of our September minutes.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I have scanned the minutes and find them to be in order and would move for their approval.
Have a motion.
Second.
A second, Commissioner Piercy. Okay, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, and motion carries. Okay, first up is Mr. Beatty with our investment report. Welcome, Ted.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. Our effective rate is 51 basis points, which is down only 2 from last month. So it is not dropping as rapidly as it was, which is good news. But we did bid some money this last month. And our best bid was for 90 days, 0.46, which is below what we're getting in such a short period. And the year was just 36 basis points. And we decided not to take any of those bids because it seemed like we were better served to stay where we were. We'd probably over the term make more money. So we'll just keep trying to see what the market offers. So, but that means that our everyday rate is better than anybody else has offered, which is good.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion from Commissioner Johnson. Second. Commissioner Dodd. Any further questions? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion approved. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up is our fund condition report, and that'll be Lisa.
Okay, we'll start with the development tax. We received $509,250 in the month of September. That brings our year-to-date total to $1,404,375. As far as the cash balances in the county, they total $241,967,000, with $212,694,000 being operating funds, $29,273,000 being borrowed funds. As far as the revenue, I believe we've got, let me go get to that one. All funds, I just thought this was interesting. Now, sometimes there's a difference between the development tax report that planning gives them, what we show in our books. There's a timing difference sometime. But for July, August, September, compared to the same period, development tax is down 14.51%. Hotel motel tax is down 15%. I don't think that surprises anyone. But for sales tax countywide, and that's only 2 months reporting, it's up 12.25%. The other items on this first page that looks unusual, and I've got you a footnote there, number 2, is total other local revenues. That's the sale of the 2 county buildings. That's why that number looks so much higher, $1,161,000 compared to $383,000 in the prior year. You look at state revenue, it looks unusual compared to the prior year, but it's normal. It's really normal revenue. It is just coming in a little faster than normal. I mean, we've already got $385,000 of that was monies that came from the state of Tennessee for boarding of prisoners, and it was early, along with our health department reimbursement for the state part of the budget. It too came early, so it's only unusual in that it's here early. It is expected revenue. The only budget as far as revenue compared to the other 5 periods that looks a little, that's behind, it's kind of sort of, and that is the drug fund. It's somewhat behind compared to the other years.
Okay, does that conclude your report?
Yes, sir.
Question. So basically, you think that the increase in the sales tax and everything's kind of washing out, evening everything out pretty well?
Okay, so when, you got to think about how much sales tax we get. I mean, that number is really huge for schools. For the other funds, the sales tax in the rural area, it's split between the county, the highway, and solid waste. So it's just not as large of a number, but it's not enough to offset other major revenues in those funds. But it's good news, especially when you look back to the way we budgeted sales tax into this year, is that we rolled it back. So.
But even though with the decrease in some of them, we're not in dire straits.
Right. Of course, we only have 2 months reporting too, and it's still early in the year. But for these 2 months, it's a good story.
Any other questions for Lisa? Motion to approve by Commissioner Johnson.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Dodd. Any other discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, next up is our risk management report, and Ed is on his way up. Welcome.
On the 264 fund, you'll see the graphs, gives you comparison this year compared to last year. On the calendar and the fiscal year, on the tracker, I'll give you the numbers. For the calendar year for September, you had $8,619,126 in revenue. In expenditures, you had $6,687,188 for a difference of $1,931,938 to the good. For the month of September, as far as enrollment, you had 6,264. For the calendar year total, you have $60,503,445 in revenue. Expenditures is $61,648,050 for a difference, a negative $1,144,604. For the fiscal year, you have, for the total, $12,196,492 in revenue. In expenditures, you have $21,464,817 for a difference, a negative $9,268,325. $266 fund, you have, and you can see it's down this year compared to last year on the graph. And if you flip over to the tracker, for the month of September, and I'll break it down, workers' comp, OJI, workers' comp, $3,790.35. OJI was $47,662.21. for a total, which you'll see in September 20, $51,452.56 compared to last year, $66,661.46. Year to date, you have for 2020, $155,586.32 compared to last year at $114,702.39. The county attorney expense, you have for the month of September, $41,474.84. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Okay. Do I hear a motion or any further questions?
Motion to approve.
Piercy, Commissioner Piercy makes a motion to approve the report.
I'll second.
Second, Commissioner Allen. Any other questions for Ed? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yeah.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes, motion carries. And Ed, you've got something else to talk about.
Sir, Mr. Chairman, I just want to take just a minute of your time and just mention that the enrollment guides have gone out to all the employees and members of the medical plans, medical, dental, and vision plans. I will mention a couple of things that are different a little bit from last year. Because of COVID, we weren't able to go on site as much as we would like to. So what we have done is we've extended a week. Last year was 2 weeks. This year it's 3 weeks. It will begin October the 12th, which is Monday at noon, and it will end November the 2nd at Monday at noon. So that gives you 3 weekends for people to come home, look at their stuff, and then get back with us. We are accepting appointments. We're accepting walk-ins. I will mention that because of the volume that we have, if you make appointments, we can get to you a lot quicker. If you have a walk-in and we're all busy, you may have some time, because some people can take, up to 30, 45 minutes with questions and things like that. We do have our websites up, the booklets, in case you lose your book or you change the address, but we're not aware of it. It is on the website, so it is electronic. And we have a lot of other things, helpful tools if someone's trying to decide which health plan to go to. We have my Signet where you can go in and there's a comparison tool. If you plugged in your pharmacy and medical expenses, and it can kind of guide you. Our office will not guide you on which plan to choose or advise you on which plan to choose, but we will give you some tools to help you make your decision. And our office hours have been extended for this period of time from 7:30 to 5 o'clock. And that's trying to help the teachers because of school and stuff like that, to give some additional time. And we will also, if 5 o'clock is a little too early for you, we will also take some appointments after 5 o'clock, but not walk-ins. Commissioner, that was all I had.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. Have a good day.
I'll catch you later.
Okay, next up is the general fund budget amendment for the sheriff's office grants. Preble, welcome.
Good news is most of what I have tonight's grants. So can I do the first two together, Mark, or just need to take them one at a time? Same.
You can do all 4 of them if you want to. That's yeah, because they're all 4 of the grants are just normal.
Well, I have 4 here. The first is our 2021 teen driver safety grant, an amount of $18,000, and we need to appropriate that money in the expense, mainly overtime, in-service, and your salary benefits. Number 2 would be our 2021 community-based traffic safety enforcement grant. This is new. It's an amount of $50,000, and put put that into the expenditure accounts of overtime and, of course, your salary benefits. The JAG grant is what we split with Murfreesboro every year. The total for us is $28,362, and we're going to put that in law enforcement equipment to buy 3 night vision. And then we have our another THSO grant. It's for new law enforcement liaison as a network coordinator for Middle Tennessee, and that is in the amount of $15,000. The total is $20,000, but we're going to only appropriate $15,000 right now until we decide after a new budget we might need something else. So we're going to leave that in unappropriated, and that will be in salary line items, travel, and law enforcement equipment. So those are the 4.
Okay, we did see this at Public Safety, just so y'all know, and it passed unanimously on each one of these counts.
These are all no matching funds or anything. This is all 100% grants from the state for us.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Johnson, motion to approve.
I have the sheriff come up on,
Got to vote on
oh,
that,
I'm
correct?
sorry.
I need to get a second.
Mr. Piercy, second. Mr. Piercy,
Okay.
second.
Commissioner Piercy seconds. Thank you, Commissioner Gooch. I saw you move there. So are there any other questions on these 4 amendments? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes. Okay, motion is carried. Thank you.
I've
And
got 2 more things. I got to let him talk first.
right. Welcome, Sheriff. All right.
What we're asking for is a geographic information system specialist or analyst. It'd be a new position. And what this position would do would be working with our mapping system and public safety systems and integrating these 2 systems together into our computer-aided dispatch system. The need has arisen. We were originally going to request this in the new budget year and forego that because of budget restraints. But recently we have run into some situations where our mapping systems, which all of our fire, ambulance, and police dispatching is hinged on our mapping system. Each one of us operates off of a different map overlay. Fire department has different zones from what we've got, and then the ambulance service also has different zones. Plus, they operate in the city, which we have one big zone for the city, but we don't dispatch in the city. They operate off of our CAD system, and the need has come to keep these systems updated with mapping so we can make sure that our cars, our fire truck, our ambulance shows on the map where it is, the location, and it shows the closest unit to be dispatched. The other problem that we've run into is due to annexation, which occurs in the city, and this especially impacts our ambulance service on dispatching. If the annexation is not kept up to date on this map overlay, then it can cause a misdirect call or an ambulance being sent from further away than what it's located. So some of the problems that we've run into recently and then interfacing with the city on the mapping has shown us a need that we've got to get this position where we can start working on a mapping system for all of our systems to assure that it's working properly. The position would be located at the sheriff's office since we have primary PSAP for the computer-aided dispatch. And then also we control for the fire and the ambulance, which is a secondary, it is controlled off of our system. So what this would be doing map overlays not only for Sheriff's Office, it'll also be for Rutherford County Fire and also for the Emergency Medical System services, the ambulance service. So that's a need for the position. I think Sonia has worked up the position and where it would fall on our pay grade salary schedule. So I don't know if you'd want to hear from her or not, but that's our request, and I think that's what the amendment would be, is to add this position.
You want to go ahead and fill us in, or the rest of the committee, on how much this is going to be for the rest of the year and what that'll be in the future?
Don, you got that, or have you got it? Okay, Preble's got it. Sorry.
If this is approved, it'll be $44,770. That includes benefits, all the line items for your salary, benefits, and everything. So that would be the total amount for the remaining of the year.
For the remainder of this year? Okay. We saw this in public safety. Normally, we won't go in and consider having additional personnel, as y'all well know. However, after listening to the problems that we're running into as far as our dispatching goes, we don't need to be misdispatching. You know, we're talking about minutes and lives when that happens. So this got a favorable motion out of public safety.
Okay, 44,770 for the remaining year.
That's
Okay,
right, would
what
come
would be
from unassigned fund balance.
Okay, what would be the fiscal year? How much more would
And
be?
on what we would get as far as salary increase, but probably, what would you say?
Okay, if this is 44,770 for 10 months, would it be 8,000 or almost 9,000 more for a full year? Would it be 53, 54,000?
That sounds about right.
Is that about right?
Sonia's got it.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. I was looking for the same number there, so she's bringing it to us.
Assumption that the person that would come into this position would have up to 5 years experience credit. There may be somebody with a little bit more, depending on their, if it's somebody internal or if it's somebody external to 5. So really, to give you an exact number would be hard, because step 5 is with 5 years experience, and it would be around 53,000, I think, 53, 55 for the salary for this level of position. So.
Was this in your original budget request that went through? Was this originally?
For last year's budget, It was, and then we withdrew the personnel because of the constraints and so forth.
I don't have any problem with it. I just wanted to clarify that. Motion to approve.
Did I hear a motion? Yeah, okay, there you go. Commissioner Johnson moves to approve. Do I hear a second?
This is Commissioner Allen. I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. Is there any further discussion?
I have a question. Do you feel like this position will be filled in-house?
You need to speak to the mic.
I don't know. I've got somebody in-house that does have some qualifications, although have become aware this week of somebody else that has far superior qualifications. So I will advertise this job to see what type of applicants we'll get. It's going to take somebody that's skilled both in our CAD system and in GIS system. So it's going to require a little bit more than somebody that's got just CAD experience.
My question next would be for Ms. Stevenson. Do you feel like this is comparable pay for somebody of this skill level or not?
Yes, sir. We evaluated and we considered this in line with what our GIS departments has some individuals who does mapping. We looked at the mapping analyst. We looked at the specialist. took the criteria that was required of a law enforcement agency, which is a little bit unique because they're dealing with a lot of confidentiality, streets. So they're actually probably gathering more information than our GIS department may be doing in-house for what they're doing for naming streets and those type things. So we took all of that into consideration. And then obviously once somebody gets in the position, we would look at it to see, you know, is this bigger than we imagine trying to compile all this stuff? But I feel like it's very comparable to what other people are making for a similar position in a law enforcement agency.
The reason I asked, I didn't want to vote to approve a position with money not well enough, you know, for somebody to apply. I have no problem with the position. I was just wondering. Thank you.
Commissioner Gooch, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairs. So I'm curious to know, when we took this out of the budget during budget time to now, what has happened to make this put on the front burner? And the reason I ask is I know last month we turned down a department head property assessor for a couple of positions. I voted no on that based upon that we don't like to see in the first month or so a department head coming back and asking for positions that they did not get during the budget process. So has anything happened between the budget process to now that has made this so important that we need to approve it?
I'm going to ask the mayor to make a comment on that, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Gooch, you know, we've been negotiating with the city as far as, you know, the talk's been going on for quite some time, and we didn't realize that this had happened until there was a call that came in. Murfreesboro City Fire and Rescue said that it was a missed call. Chris Clark actually looked at the map. He sent the map trying to figure out what happened. He looked at our map. He sent it to Mark Folks. Mark Folks looked at their map, or at least the city, and the two maps did not match. So when the dispatch came out, Chris then realized, he got hold of the sheriff. They started talking, and because of the rapid annexing of the city, that information of the new maps and streets had not been shared. So that was discovered after the budget process. This happened just within the last month. So that is what has brought this about. And when it comes down to saving someone's life, we can't afford to let that happen. Now, we are in the process and should have it. It's in the works, the CAD to CAD software system. So when a call comes into 911, those maps should start blending together. But we need someone to be on top because the sheriff is the primary PSAP. They need this person from a mapping standpoint to stay on top of it, whatever maps are being developed by the city. So where nothing falls through the cracks, we just can't afford that liability. If that makes sense. Am I correct, Sheriff? Am I good on that?
Commissioner Dodd, you recognized.
Thank you, Sheriff. Does the tax assessor's mapping systems have any crossover to your CADs or your? No. So he's uploading Register of Deeds, new streets that get platted, go to him, and none of these are talking? In addition to annexation.
In addition to annexation, there's anything that goes on in mapping is going to affect how we dispatch. As far as tax records, what we're looking at is more physically where something is located, and then I not only have to be concerned with it city, county, but then I've got to be concerned with our dispatch zones versus ambulance dispatch zones versus fire dispatch zones, and all of them are different. So if you can look at a base map, then what you got to do, a GIS specialist then makes layers going through 911, going through city, going through county, and they layer these, and then on those layers then we have to input vehicle information, what's going to be dispatched, where is that located, and so it has to look at all that information. So it's more complex than just simply a map. The other problem that we get into while it has to reside with us is because of the systems that this person has to access. It's systems that are governed by TBI, FBI, and so we just can't let anybody into those systems. They have to be vetted, they have to be tested, and they have to be certified to be able to get in some of the systems that they're going to be looking at, the type of mapping that we use. So.
Mr. Johnson, you're recognized.
I just have a question for Sonia. So the grade 25 and the step 5, the rationale for that was to make it competitive to attract the most qualified person, correct? So that's justification right there. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on this, don't we, Mark? Are there any other questions or? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
So,
That said, now I have to get the amendment to go on to the commission, and that will be $44,770. If this becomes a reality, this will start on October the 19th as far as the money being available. And that money is coming from unassigned fund balance, and we put into salaries and the benefits.
Okay, we'll need a motion to transfer that money. Is that correct?
I guess I misunderstood. I thought that's what you did just now. That,
that was,
by approving the position, approve the amendment.
okay. Well, we'll let it stand that was approved in that last vote. All right, so we're good there.
Last one, and I'm done. I'm asking for permission to apply for the State Criminal Alien Assistant Program again. This will be the third year that we've done this. I can't tell you how much we get because it just depends on what information sent to the government. We did get $51,000 last year, though, and $21,000 the year before. So I need to get permission to apply for this grant this year for 2020.
That's public safety entertainment.
Public safety unanimously.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions for Preble? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Preble. Thank you, Sheriff. Okay, next up would be, I think, General Fund Budget Amendment for Fire Rescue. I think that's Chief Farley. Welcome.
I have a budget amendment that we sold 2 trucks to Cannon County for $40,000, and I want to move that out of equipment into $35,000 into data processing equipment and $5,000 into data processing services.
We also saw this in public safety, and it was approved unanimously there.
Motion to approve.
Motion, Commissioner Piercy.
Second.
Commissioner Gooch, second. Thank you. Just one quick question. The trucks that you sold, was that just a truck, or was that truck and equipment? 2 trucks. Okay, and just a truck. Okay.
We also have an opportunity. We had a smoke alarm grant, And we have the opportunity, because of COVID.
Mr. Farley,
Yeah,
we need to take a vote on that.
Yeah, we got a motion and a second. We need to go ahead and vote on that one. So are there any other questions on the sale of the trucks and where that money is being dispersed to? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes, motion carries. Okay, Chief Farley, go
We
ahead.
had a smoke alarm. We got awarded a FEMA smoke alarm grant last year, and because of COVID, we have the opportunity to extend that grant. And because there's money involved, I wanted to bring that back through the process. There's a 5% match. It's $80,108 is the grant part, and the county's match is $3,815. And what this will give us the opportunity to do is to pay people overtime to canvass areas and install smoke alarms, go door to door. Gives us the opportunity to advertise the free smoke alarms on billboards and movie theaters, and also it gives us the opportunity to pay some of the volunteer firefighters per alarm for what they do if they're involved in going out to hang smoke detectors. And what we've been doing is we've partnered with Las Casas, we partner with Kittrell, Christiana, and Allenville, and we provide the alarms, and they go out and help us canvass the area and go door to door. And if people don't have smoke alarms, we put up free smoke alarms for them. And this is just to extend that.
This also passed out of public safety. I'm sorry, was that? Oh. Okay, you've heard the request. Is there a motion or any further questions?
Need a motion to approve?
I do need a motion. You have that from Commissioner Johnson makes a motion to approve them, the extension of the grant. Looking for a second.
Second.
Commissioner Piercy seconds. Are any other questions for Chief Farley on this? Is there any other further costs past what the original grant on this vote?
So just the county's part is at $3,500. It's $3,815 is the county's part of it.
Any other questions? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes, motion carries. Okay, next we have a application for the TDEC Volkswagen Settlement Truck Grant, and I guess that's a request to apply for that.
Yes, sir. What it is the Volkswagen company got in trouble with the Department of Justice on they were able to fix their vehicles with fuel emissions testing, and there was a settlement, and that was $2.8 billion. $45 million of that was given to the state of Tennessee, and by us buying a newer fire apparatus that is more what you may call, if you know anything about diesels, that has DEF fluid where a lot of our older engines don't. It's to create better emissions or cleaner air by running it. The mayor sent this to me, and what we want to do is buy a ladder truck out in the county because with all the growth that's going on, there's talk of putting a warehouse out on Sulphur Springs Road that's 2 million square feet under roof. We've got Epps Mill Road. We've got a manufacturing on Butler Road that we cover in our area that's a warehouse. We have a 2-story office warehouse on Elam Road. We have the Love's Truck Stop out on Epps Mill Road, and they're building another truck stop, Thornton's, on the property where the Outpost Armory is, and then right beside the on Miller Road right there beside the Dollar General store, they're putting another gas station. As you know, the CUD run a 16-inch water line down Manchester Highway, and it crosses on the interstate, and this line will feed the new Christiana schools. They're putting 1,500 homes and townhouses in the Buchanan Estates. It's already been established. The high school will be 2-story. Rockville is 2-story. Stewart's Creek is 2-story. And so this won't necessarily help our ISO rating, but if we don't have that type of equipment, it will affect our ISO rating going down in the future because we don't have the proper equipment to handle these large buildings. A lot of the homes are 4,000 and 5,000 square foot. A lot of the homes are zero lot lines, so they're sitting right beside each other. The first floor is the front door and the garage, and all the living space upstairs. And a lot of these houses are too tall for us to use hand ladders. So this will greatly improve the response of Rutherford County Fire Rescue, along with the volunteer fire departments out there to assist them. And we've asked for I think we can do it cheaper than this, but I want to ask for $1.2 million. This is a 50-50 grant, so whatever if it's $1 million, it'd be $500,000. 1.2 would probably be $7,000 both ways. So it's a 50-50 grant, and if we are awarded this, and that it would take about, if y'all approve this and we spec out a truck and we put it out to purchase it, you're probably looking at next year's budget by the time it comes in. It'd probably take anywhere from 8 to 7 months to receive it. So this money could be appropriated in our next budget.
This was looked at in public safety, and one of the other things that came out is the volunteer departments, and when I was actively fighting fire, we actually canvassed our areas and we designated the buildings that would need a snorkel or a high-rise apparatus to fight it. And it's not just 3-story buildings, which we have some in our district, but large barns, some of the factories that are out in the rural areas too. And most of the volunteer departments already have these designated. So, if we had a incident in one of those areas, we'd automatically have to call for mutual aid to get those type trucks in. And this would help all of us. And as a matter of fact, what can happen is if an alarm came in from one of those designated areas that we already knew we'd need it, it could automatically dispatch this truck from wherever he's going to have it located to that area. So that will help, all the rural areas too. That was part of the thinking on why it was approved out of public safety. And two, Chief Hardy took $1 million out of his budget because of what we were seeing. And this is an opportunity with the grant to actually get that truck that we had decided not to do this year. At least with this grant, this would pay for at least 50% of that truck. So that's why we decided to bring it forward to budget. Commissioner Johnson.
So about $750,000 would be the county's responsibility, right? That's about a half cent on the property tax, isn't it, Lisa? For public safety. That's cheap.
Mr. Chairman, Chief, was that vehicle on your budget last year that you cut out?
Well, basically, we've had a process of replacing the old fire trucks that are 30-something years old. The next round of trucks that we replaced are 20 years old. NFPA recommends replacing them after 15 years. After 15 years, they should go in reserve. As you know, we bought 14 in 1990 and 14 up more in 1999. These trucks are reaching the end of their life as far as what NFPA, National Fire Protection, says is safe. So this will be replacing one of our 1999 trucks with a newer motor that is more energy efficient and emissions cleaner air and that type of thing.
Was you called it a Storkel and you called it a ladder truck? Was this type truck on the budget?
Well,
or is this a new?
We had $1,172,000 every year we were replacing trucks. So this is just a little bit more. It's like 1.1, almost a little less than 1.2 million. So it's very close.
It sounds like we're adding a vehicle that was not specifically requested in last year's budget because we have this grant. So we're not replacing according to your takedown schedule you've had. We're adding a vehical. Is that
pretty
correct?
much, yeah. But because of the grant, we'll have to discard one of the older trucks that's not environmentally friendly, you might say.
Will this truck have some dual purpose, or is it so large or unwielding that it only goes out for a snorkel call?
This truck can be used for It can also be used for the school protection. It can be used for technical rescue. Like if you have somebody off in a ravine, we can rappel off that ladder, stick that ladder over that ravine, like that cave rescue we had, rappel off down off it. It allow our people to be safer on a bigger ladder than instead of a hand ladder. It allows us to have overreach over the top of a building if it caves in, and instead of putting people in there, we can put it up in the air and drown the structure instead of putting people in harm's way. So it does have more than just one purpose.
It can be used on house fire, yes.
Yes, man, that's most of what we'd be using, but I mean, any type of structure that's caved inside, it caves in on itself, and then you can't get to the fire, but this way you have the opportunity to drown it without utilizing your manpower and wearing them out.
So it will have water capability at the end of the ladder?
Yes.
Okay. Now, will this make two we've got, or did the one at Walter Hill go away?
That truck was old and outdated, and it got too expensive to maintain that ladder, so we sold it and surplused it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief Farley on the truck? Commissioner Johnson?
That was the remark that I was going to make. Basically, this truck will be replacing an antiquated truck that,
yes, sir.
You know.
That's part of the grant. You have to get rid of an old truck that doesn't provide good emissions as one that does. And we were going to do that anyway. We're going through that process, so this is just be one truck ahead that we'll get money on a grant with.
Okay, I'll open the floor for or to entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion from Commissioner Dodd to approve. A second, Commissioner Piercy. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Chair, where do we say the match would come from?
This is from a Volkswagen settlement.
Actually, from TDAC, the Tennessee Department of Environmental and Environmental Conservation.
Thank you.
Mr. Gooch, were you asking where would our matching component come from?
Yes, that was my question.
Good question. What's your thought on that, Mr. Chairman?
And we've got
Your options are unassigned fund balance, development tax that we've collected in the past that have not, that we've restricted for that use.
My suggestion would be to come out of development tax.
Do we have to make that decision now, or
No.
what? See when the
Only
the
when
grant?
awarded.
if the grant's awarded, we'd have to make that decision then, she's saying.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Very well could be out of next year's budget.
And this,
Budget for it.
and they're just pointing out it would be in next year's budget if it's approved. Any other questions? Commissioner Johnson?
That need to be included with the motion that it
No.
It's
she
just-
wants
wanted out of
He's-
development tax.
Now, he's just requesting to apply.
I'm just requesting to apply for it. There's no guarantee I'll get it. I'm just requesting to apply for it. And then, and of course, if we don't get it, we can budget for it next year, but we're probably going to have to budget for it in next year's budget anyway.
Yeah, the grant is a 24-month grant.
Okay. Anyone else?
Up to a year to receive the truck.
Hearing none, call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes.
Thank you very
Chief
much.
Farley.
I have one other question, Larry. Is the service for changing out smoke detector batteries, do y'all do that for the elderly people?
We do that for anybody that calls us.
Okay.
We do it for everybody in the county. The city does the same thing, but if you want us to come check yours out, we'll check yours out.
My wife takes care of ours.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, next up, Mr. Nolan. We have an agreement with Clean Harbors for the Household Hazardous Waste Day. Mac, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. You may remember last month we did the budget for this agreement, and now we're bringing the agreement forward to you and asking for approval of the agreement and permission for the mayor to sign it. And the cost is the same cost that the state bid is.
Do we need a refresher course on this, or has everybody still got that in their mind, our discussion last month? If we do, I'll go ahead and accept a motion.
Because basically, this is just taking care of last month's business, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, this is for the Rutherford County to have their own household hazardous waste collection and pay for it herself, and TDEC is not a part of it.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson makes a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gooch. Is there any other questions for Mr. Nolan on this? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Let me add to that and remind the residents this will be the last year that we will collect latex paint. So if you have it, bring it on.
Okay. Okay, next is the Solid Waste Fund Budget Amendment. And Mac, that's you too.
We finally received 2 bids for our maintenance agreement for our large trucks. And they were quite a bit higher than what we'd had in the past. We talked about that when we opened the bids. So we're going to need to do a budget amendment for fund for it. So last year, we performed 72 150-hour services, and it cost us $5,752.80. At the new cost for those same services is $20,790. We performed 76 300-hour services that cost $27,160.88. Under the new cost, it was $49,590. Our labor cost for working on vehicles, we had 496 hours at $48.50 an hour. The new cost, or the old cost, was $24,100. New cost $47,207. You total all those from what we did spend is $57. What we're looking at spending is $117,000. So we need to do a $125,000 budget amendment that we're not even sure it's going to get us through the end of the year, but we're pretty sure to get us through March. Mr. P tasked me, or Commissioner P, or Chairman P tasked me with finding it within our own budget instead of coming from fund balance. And we spent some time, and we have done that. I don't know if y'all see that, or
you flip to the next page.
The second page.
I wanted to commend Mac for digging into his budget and pulling these items out so we don't have to go into assigned fund balance to do that.
You remember the Solid Waste Department has 5 budgets. So the first line item that we're going to pull out of is the active landfill budget, and it's the fertilizer and lime and chemicals. So we're going to take $10,000 out of that line. The second one is the same line item in the post-care budget for the closed landfill, so we'll take another $10,000 there. The third one is for convenience center budget. It's equipment, machinery, parts. We're going to take $25,000 out of that one. And the third one is for other solid waste budget, which is our Haley Road operation, and we're going to take $80,000 out of that one, out of the solid waste equipment line item. And Mr. P and I discussed that before, but the reason we're able to take that $80,000 is that the TDEC is not giving out any grants. Normally we get a recycle rebate grant. We're not going to get it. We didn't get it last year, so that money is earmarked to spend to recoup from the grant. So we're not going to have the grant, so we're not going to buy the equipment.
This did pass out of public safety. I was just making the comment, when we saw this as public safety, it passed unanimously. Commissioner,
not any new money, in other words.
No, not now. He's pulling this out of his line items.
This came through Public Works, Chairman. And it did indeed pass unanimously for.
I was on a roll with public safety.
I know, right?
I apologize.
So
You're correct.
three of us were on this committee, and it seemed like a lot of money and a big deviation from the assumed cost. And so we walked through this pretty good at Public Works this week, and an old contract for services is just simply, it become antiquated, it expired. These are real numbers, new numbers, and if we don't spend this to maintain our fleet, the cost would be way more. So that's why it came through Public Works unanimously. And I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Piercy. Any other questions?
Before we vote on this, I'd like to get Mac to explain really what is involved in this maintenance so people will understand what you're going to spend this money on.
Okay. The solid waste department doesn't have a facility to work on our trucks. We're parked behind the MA building in a really small gravel parking lot. I challenge you to go there sometime late in the afternoon and see how many trucks are back there, and it would surprise you on how we can get them all parked without hitting each other. There's a concrete slab there that we have. Mac in Nashville currently has the bid, and they'll send their service truck with the fluids and the filters and the parts and the manpower and actually service the truck there. If you remember, the county used to have a fueling station back there. It was just a pole barn with 2 fuel pumps, had a 1,000-gallon diesel tank and a 1,000-gallon gasoline tank. Those have been removed because we don't fuel there anymore, and we put sides on it. We can get a roll-off truck in there if it's raining, but we can't get a front-loader truck. So the 150-hour service is every 150 engine hours. We have them come in and grease the truck and do a DOT inspection. 300 hours, they do the 150 over, plus they change the oil in the filters. Our trucks are in really good mechanical condition. We stay on top of those. And then the other cost is for repairing, in any vehicles they break, but garbage trucks break a lot more often because of the rough terrain that we travel in.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mac? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Mac. Okay, next up is the General Purpose School Fund Amendment, and I see Doug on his way up. Welcome.
Good evening. School Board has 2 budget amendments tonight for your consideration. One is from the General Purpose School Fund, the other is from the Education Capital Project Fund. The first one is for budget amendment, the General Purpose School Fund for additional expenditures for the federal mandated comprehensive coordinated early intervention services program. This amendment budgets for additional funding as approved in the CCEIS program plan with the State Department of Education to continue to address disproportionality in discipline issues identified last year. Funding for these current expenditures are 100% from federal IDA grant funds that are being transferred from the School Federal Projects Fund. And the recommended motion that we request of this body is to approve this budget amendment for additional CCEIS program funding as approved by the State Department of Education and the school board.
Okay, you've heard the request. Are there any questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
Chairman Allen makes a motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Johnson seconds. Is there any further discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, go ahead and continue, Doug.
Second amendment is from the Education Capital Projects Fund that the school board is requesting. It is an amendment to move funds between planned capital projects. It's a request to amend the fiscal year 2021 Capital Projects Fund planned projects to reallocate $430,000 in funding from a backup server project in order to renovate school restrooms at Smyrna Middle, Oakland High, Riverdale High, Smyrna High, and Laverne High schools. Additionally, a request to reallocate $75,000 in funds from the Life Safety Security Rekey to Primus door replacement category to the Life Safety Security Camera Programs DVR project category. This is the majority of this, of course, is with the renovation of these bathrooms to bring them up to ADA standards. So the recommended motion, the request of the school board to this body is to approve the amendment between planned capital projects in the capital projects funds to address the presented capital improvement needs.
Okay, you've heard his request.
Mr. Chairman, we did discuss this quite a bit at Health and Ed the other night, and so I am going to make a motion to approve, but I also want to mention Doug, after we get the second, he might want to talk about the fact of why we're taking this from the server, because I know that was one of the concerns that we had in terms of technology, was saying, you know, is now the time to be taking money away from that? And for the purposes of what that piece of equipment was going to be used for, it's in no way going to impact our distance learners, and it also wouldn't advantage our distance learners. So anyway, I'm going to make my motion. I'll let Doug answer those questions if you all have them, but I'm comfortable making a motion to approve.
Thank you, Chairman.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Are there any
Commissioner Gooch on the second. Was that Commissioner Gooch?
I believe it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we have that motion and a second. Doug, did you want to expound on Chairman Allen's statement?
Just briefly, from my understanding from speaking with our technology department with Ms. Spurlock, you know, that this would not hamper our distance learners at all. Obviously, we would like to have a backup server. You know, we maintain all of our data, of course, in the cloud, and it's backed up. What we're talking, obviously, we would like to have a backup server that would, you know, in case of tornado and stuff, we could quickly get that back up. This with the ADA to get the handicapped students and staff and visitors an ADA compliant restroom would be more pressing. However, we are going to look for different ways to fund a backup server in the future.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Doug? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Doug. Okay, next is an application for Homeland Security grant for emergency management. There's Chris. Welcome.
Chairman. This grant is request an application for the Homeland Security Program 2020, which comes to a total of $109,353. This equipment would be allotted to our police departments and also some technical rescue equipment, and then along with a communication device.
This is the grant we see yearly that we share with the other people that are in our same region. So this is not really anything new. Actually, a little less money just about every year, but other than that.
Been waiting for it to dry up for years.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll continue to see some of that. But this did pass unanimously out of public safety. I did get that one right this time, I hope. So we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Chairman Allen. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Johnson. All right. We have a motion and a second for this application of Homeland Security grant. Are there any other questions? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Chris. All right, next is the ambulance service fund budget amendments. And let's see, I believe Lisa is going to help us with that one.
Yes, there's two tonight. The first one is a very small amendment. It's $1,200 moved from the emergency budget to the convalescent transport budget of $1,200 to provide additional funds for their convalescent ambulance based on the bids that they received. And that's an easy one. And the second one is easy as well. It's just bigger dollars. And if you remember last year, we made this similar amendment. A third of an EMT and a paramedic salary is composed of overtime. Typically, we have budgeted every bit of it into the paraprofessional line item, but we pay out correctly, and overtime goes to overtime. So this amendment in both the emergency services and convalescent services moves the overtime component of their salary into the overtime line item. For emergency services, that's $1,980,000, and for convalescence, that's $45,000. Still within their budgets, just putting it in the correct line.
I know I've had some questions about our convalescence ambulance service there, and the fact that it was paying for itself, which we've seen that it has. And the question came up is, well, if it's paying for itself, why are we having to make this transfer? And I think it
has nothing to do with that. I'm going to back up. Back before we had them on electronic timekeeping, it was a process where it was a very manual process on the ambulance side and on our side, like I said. When you look at the annual salary of either a paramedic or an EMT, they're required to work 840 hours of overtime. So their people and our people would allocate that required overtime into the regular salary line item. When we went on electronic timekeeping, it automatically just figures out and it's anything over 40, it goes to overtime. We've just had to redo our systems to make it work to where it's easier to keep up with and less people touching and keying produces less error. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that has happened. It's just that it was all mushed together. The overtime was in the paraprofessional line item. So I'm going to go back. As part of that salary is truly overtime. We are accounting for it correctly now.
Will we see this kind of amendment in the future?
So I intend, now that we'll have two, last year we did it half a year, and so when we were going through the budget process, it's hard for y'all to see what's normal, what's not normal. So this year will be a full year that you will be able to look at what the budget is for this year into next year. You see what I'm saying? So I would intend to, we got a budget kind of the way we do, but in the end, we will separate it out so we don't have to do this amendment. We'll do it during the budget process.
Any other questions for Lisa? Mr.
We're
Johnson?
just looking at $1,200. Is that right?
Well, I was doing both of them together.
How much?
I was doing both of them together. The first one was $1,200. That just related to the buying the truck. The big number is just moving the salary into the correct line item.
Looking at transferring $1,200, right?
Well, there's two different amendments.
There's two. There's a second amendment.
The second amendment on the second page.
Yeah. It's really, all we're doing is, it's more of a counting thing because it was all, the overtime was accounted for in the budget in the paraprofessional line. And we're just taking that component out and putting it into overtime because as the people are being paid, that's where those expenses are being charged. We're not doing the manual process of saying, oh, well, this part really, they're required, so let's put it back in the paraprofessional.
I don't
we're
think we're
skipping
looking
that
at,
step
we're
of
not
it.
looking at any new money here.
We're not,
We're-
no
The
new money.
$1,200 is
No new
where a
money
bid
at all.
came in below what we thought, and it's being transferred out of motor vehicles.
Not going to break the bank, right?
No, sir.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Dodd seconds. Any other discussion?
Question.
Mr. Piercy?
45,000 being moved over into the Convalescence Fund is not new money. Is
No,
that
sir.
correct?
It's not, no, it's not new money. It's just taking that component of their annual salary that really is required overtime to them and putting it in to where those expenses are being charged. It's not new money. It's really making the budget agree with the accounting.
So they still remain self-sustaining?
Yes, sir.
It's similar to what Mac just did. We moved it within his budget. This is the same thing. We're moving it within their budget, just to a different line item.
Any further questions? Call roll, please, Mark.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Okay, next is a general fund amendment for archives. And is John here or online? If
I'll
not,
do it.
Lisa will do that.
Is he online?
I
Okay.
haven't seen him.
The Archives Department was awarded a $2,500 grant to purchase acid-free folders and boxes, and this amendment just puts that grant revenue and appropriates that money. It's $2,500.
Heard the budget request.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Piercy moves to approve.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Dodd. Any discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Next is a general fund budget amendment for Samsha grant.
Yes, sir. This is a grant that's within our recovery courts. It is for the period of September 30th through June 30th, 2021. The original allocated budget fund and awarded courts, let's see, awarded to carry over for 3 years. We were allowed an extension for the transition of the clients with co-occurring courts out of the program. This basically is an amendment that agrees our budget to the grant budget. It's an increase of the direct federal funds of $156,505 and reallocates those funds.
So we're not talking about any new money,
Correct.
just recognizing the grant funds that we've received
Yes.
and extending it. Any questions for Lisa on this?
Motion to approve is presented.
Thank you, Chairman Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Gooch, thank you, sir, for a second. Is there any other questions on this grant? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Next, and I think Lisa will do this too, is a general fund budget amendment for the VTC2 grant.
This is for the Veterans Treatment Court. They were awarded a no-cost extension into 9/30/2021. On this particular one, we went ahead and did budget it as if it were going to happen. And so they were awarded a little bit more. So we already had the expenses in the budget. We're just recognizing the additional revenue of $21,985.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Dodd. Do I hear a second? Second, Commissioner Piercy. Any further questions? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, next is Election Security State Grant for Elections Commission. And I don't think I got Mr. Farley online, so Lisa, you're going to carry this one.
Yes, sir, I'll do it. This is a grant for the Election Commission for $25,000. It's for security. This is an interesting one in that we are a subrecipient in this grant. The equipment has already been ordered and the state paid for it. So this approval of this acceptance of the grant is, for me, a little bit of a formality, but they're going to need a signed document. We've already got the equipment.
And they've already paid for it.
I'm assuming they paid for it.
We're basically recognizing it if we need that for the...
That we're acknowledging acceptance of this grant.
You've heard that discussion. Do I hear a motion? Commissioner Johnson moves to accept this grant money. Do I hear
Second.
a second? And a second. Was that Gooch or Stevens?
It was both of us, I think, but I'll second.
Okay, we'll recognize you, Commissioner Stevens, for the second.
I do have a question.
Go ahead, please.
Lisa, you said it was for security. Do you happen to know the nature of the security?
It's a piece of technology equipment. Is that the Meraki's?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, because I know that OIT is determined what a piece of equipment that they would need, and they submitted that to Election Commission. I think it was this thing called Meraki's, not Maracas, Meraki's.
Say it one more time.
Meraki's.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Gooch?
Well, yes, I was just wondering, is it to prevent someone hacking in or manipulating the machines or?
That's above my pay grade.
Okay, that's fine. I'll check with that one.
It's a deterrent for hacking in based on Mr. Cody York's explanation. I think we ordered, I don't know how many more.
Well, we ordered, as a county, ordered some, and these were
already there.
paid for by the state.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, you've heard the answers there. Any other questions? And I think we've got a motion on this.
You have a motion?
In a second. Any other discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, next up is the annual report of fixed assets. And Lisa, you want to explain?
Yes, sir. This is one that you get every year. We wait until the auditors accept our numbers before we present it to you. The numbers, as far as how much equipment and property, plant equipment that we've got on our books, is in this report for you. This is for your review, but typically the information that y'all like is on the back. It's in the last book, and it's the results of the inventories that was done, and there was quite a few that was done this year. Many of them had 100%. When they do these inventories, they give the opportunity, they go in and try to find everything that they can themselves. It's a full-time person and a part-time. Afterwards, they go through and present back to the school all the items that they could not find, and it gives the school opportunity for them to find those items. If they don't have it, then it's missing. That's not found in the, if it's not found in the second inventory, it's classified as missing, and then it will eventually get retired. And those items on the last page are the ones that, well, let me see what page this is. Page 10 of 14 are the ones that got the designation of not being found in the second review. It's not as many items as you think. Of course, though, you look at the dates of when we acquired them, and there's quite a bit of old items.
Lisa, this report's online, so people can review it, I assume.
Yes, sir. But anyway, it's our yearly report to you of the results of our inventory of fixed assets.
We don't need a vote on this. It's just bringing this to your attention. Are there any other questions about the fixed assets report? If not, we're going to move on to the next. Hearing none. Next is a contract with the Tennessee Department of Mental Health for evaluation and treatment. And again, this will be Lisa.
This one is one that you have seen every year. This is the one where the county is responsible to pay for the evaluations of individuals that the judges want to have a competency evaluation done. If the underlying charge is a misdemeanor, the county is responsible. This contract provides an amount, an agreed upon amount of what Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services will charge the county. It's very similar to the one that we had last year. I think the rates appear to be the same.
By the way, this is mandated by the state.
Yes.
We didn't agree.
Those that were around at the time that this first got initiated, before we really knew what was happening, we had some individuals that went past just the initial evaluation and was receiving treatment. We were getting, I think in 1 year, over $200,000 in charges. So we did get a handle on it. The judges got a handle on it, and typically it's about $800 now when they do that evaluation.
Heard the explanation. Do I hear a motion or further discussion?
If there's not one, then they charge us a lot more if we don't have this contract in place.
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Piercy. Any further discussion?
Can you tell me again how much we spent on this last year? Do you know?
I mean, I'm just really pulling it from.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because it doesn't seem to be that many. Maybe I'll overshoot and say $8,000 to $10,000. I'm thinking maybe 10 different times that I did it during the year, and it'd be about $800. Sometimes it's 2 people on one. I'll say less than 15,000.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Lisa? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, next is a discussion of refunding debt with a taxable bond issue, and this will again be Lisa.
Yes, and if you remember when we were doing the request to borrow the funds, we also had a refunding, and we talked about refunding some debt if they at the federal level allowed us to do some advanced refundings. And what that means, part of when we borrow over 20 years, generally the first 10 years is non-callable. And then after that 10 years, then we could say, we're going to call this the next 10 and go ahead and at that point might issue debt that produces less interest. Okay, so the feds changed the rules when I say advanced refundings, then there is a mechanism in place that we could do that first 10. It's in essence going through and say we want to call these bonds and set the money over on this side, and then when those come due, it will pay it, and that's going to earn interest while it's sitting on the side, and after all is said and done, you still achieve savings. It's advanced refundings. And it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do the advanced refunding. So we could still do the same kind of situation, but it becomes taxable. It's a taxable refunding. But that doesn't mean it's taxable to us. So when individuals buy Rutherford County bonds under tax exempt, that means that investment for them, the interest that they earn, it's not going to go on their 1040. It's non-taxable. When they buy taxable bonds and the interest that they earned off of this, it becomes on their 1040. It is taxable to that individual. There are the situation now, I mean, we talked about, did we tell you? Yeah, how much we got that? I guess we didn't. We didn't tell you what we got on our last bond deal, did we? This
I don't think it is.
Last deal. 1.4999. That's incredible. It's the cheapest interest rate that I have ever seen on our 20-year debt. Again, 1.4999. It was really interesting to see how close the top ones were. I mean, they were within spitting distance of each other. So all that to say that rates are low. Even doing a taxable sale, we still think we're hoping to achieve some savings. And it's on two different issues that we are looking at. It's the 2012 and some 2013s. What we hope to do is save, we're replacing bonds that we're paying out at 3% and hopefully hit that 1.5% again for these outstanding bonds. We're hoping with this competitive sale to save somewhere between $3 and $4 million in debt service payments. Now, we're not extending the life of the debt. It'd still be over the same period of time. It's just in the end, we hope to save money. I went back.
You want me with $3 million? Well, let's make a motion.
I got you at $2 million.
I've got a motion on the floor, so I'll hold that. One thing I will mention, historically, I've looked at this at the last election cycle, just to let people know, and it was $21 million that we'd saved in the last, 10 years or 12 years by refinancing, basically, is what we're doing.
We did it in nine times since 2004. And those 9 issues, an actual dollar savings, not getting into present value and all that, but actual dollar savings was $23 million for all those issues. They ranged anywhere from $1.5 million. Well, there's one for $745,000.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, I got 2 seconds there. Mr. Gooch, we'll give you this one. Any other questions for Lisa on this refinancing or refunding? Mayor?
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Kudos to Lisa and the finance department, all of our department heads. Not only it shows in the rate, the fantastic rate that we were able to get this past week, that we were excited to get that rate, but it shows the due diligence of how well run our county is. I know the city just refinanced some of their bonds as well. They were bragging about it, so we should be bragging about it. And just earlier this week, Assistant Comptroller Mumpower came down and we stood outside, took a picture. Again, we are one of 13 counties that had a perfect audit out of 95. So that's something we should be bragging about as well. So kudos to Lisa and her department for keeping track of all those different departments, as large as what we are. It's pretty remarkable, and Assistant Comptroller Mumpower was bragging on us, so congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Lisa, and all your department. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We need any other discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we also have some other business, and the first item is the Hillwood property tax refund. And Lisa, if you would explain that, please.
Yes. Do you remember last year this discussion about Hillwood and Smyrna, and it was a pilot agreement and assessing them, but on their leasehold, and we changed our appropriation resolution, and we came up with this solution of where they will go ahead and pay their taxes, and then we turn around and pay the IDB, and the IDB turns around and pays Hillwood back. There was some legislation that changed in June of this year that makes those situations not taxable on the assessor side. So this hopefully will be the last time we have an amendment like this, and it is that amendment that shows all the tax coming into the general fund, and it's for the 2020 year, and there was a pickup in 2019. That's what the prior year. So $337,093 in current property tax, that would be the increase, a budget increase to that line. $310,632 for prior year, and then payment for the trustees commission of $12,955, and the balance going to other charges that we will be paying out the money, $634,770. And this is in accordance with the contribution agreement between the county and the IDB approved December of 2019.
Okay, this is no new money. This is basically fulfilling an agreement that we already full commission approved. So do I hear any further discussion, or I'll entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Allen. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Chairman Allen.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Dodd. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Now we have one other last item that I'm aware of, and this is a lease with the district attorney for office space and a budget amendment for 20 North, which to me, I'm still stuck with old judicial building, but for 20 North, and I'm going to call on our mayor to explain this.
Yeah, can I say something before you get started? The documents are somewhere in my office, but Mark has emailed all of you, some online. Y'all probably already have it.
Should be on your email,
but
your personal email.
Well, the email that goes out to when Mark sends it out. So you've got it.
It's not on SharePoint.
It's not on SharePoint.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Actually, I'll say that it is on SharePoint. It's not on your iPads. I actually put it out on SharePoint, so it's on the internet. You can look out there on the internet and see that if you're at home. You don't have to look at your email. But it was too late to get it on the iPad. Yes. Sorry.
Good. And first, let me apologize for coming so late with this, but this did not come in until 3:45 this afternoon. So for those members who are on property management, we had been talking about this for some time, for the last two meetings, I believe, and talking with General Jennings Jones. We had also talked to Gerald Melton, public defender. We had gotten word that both those two two entities of the state were looking for office space. Public Defender Melton has recently signed a contract for right across the street next to Puckett's in the old Guidance Center building, so he'll be moving his offices into that. And so in talking with General Jones, he was aware that we had the third floor in the old judicial building that we're referring to as 20 North that was going to be vacant, even though part of the renovation right now is to bring all 5 floors of the restrooms into ADA compliance. That was in the current bid, okay? So he asked how many square feet that we had, because he's down here in the old post office on West Main Street, where his offices currently are with he and his other assistant district attorneys. They need about 14,000 square feet. I responded to him and told him we only had a little over 7,000 square feet on the third floor, which would meet his needs tremendously. He is currently located, he has another part of the district attorney's office is the child support office of the district attorney's 16th district. That's where his offices support the children in Rutherford County. They are over on Heritage Drive in a leased building. When they went into it, they were that's the largest they could find at the time. When they moved into it, they have 4,200 square feet, and they need about 7,000 square feet, and this would be perfect for him. So he said, what would it take for us to get in there? I shot him a price of $18 a square foot. And so he went back to the DA's conference in Nashville and talked with them. Now is a perfect time. If we're going to do this, now is the time to do it, because our contractor with Codell is, they've just already upstairs on the 5th floor for IT. They've already got all the sheetrock up. They're on the first coat of paint, and they're ahead of schedule. So now's the time, if we're going to do something, to go in and demo the 3rd floor and prepare this. He has a 90-day out clause on his current lease over on Heritage Park Drive, so that would give him plenty of time to back out of his lease, because we won't be able to move in until May 1. That's our target date right now, and we might get in there sooner with a certificate of occupancy. So at $18 a square foot times the 7,407 square feet on that 3rd floor, that would be $133,326 annually, or $11,110.50 a month that the state of Tennessee would pay us. So if you amortize that out over a 5-year period, that brings in $666,630. When we talked to Cadell, they roughly estimated it would be somewhere between $550,000 and $600,000 to rehab and do the demolition on that 3rd floor and bring it up to codes and specs. So you're looking there in 5 years, and this is a 10-year lease. The state of Tennessee likes to go with a 10-year lease. So like I say, it amortizes itself out. If we pay $600,000 in 5 years, we've brought in $666,000, which it just seems to make sense to me. So I bring that before you, the committee, tonight. You say, where are we going to get the money? I propose to you that we take money as a budget transfer from 101-45-540, which was from the sale of the property of the building right next door, the old Murfreesboro Bank and Trust building. We sold that for $810,000. I think by the time we did the closing cost and filing fees, our total amount that we have is $805,909. You'll see that on your SharePoint. So I'm saying that we transfer that 805,909 for the sale of the property into transfer for other, to other funds into the 101-99-100-590 line item. So that would more than enough cover us in the event that we had anything that were to come forward.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The estimate 500 to 600, that is just a guesstimate on the rehab of it?
Codell felt pretty good since they've already done the demolition on the first, second, fourth, and fifth floor. And talking with Robin Gentry, I believe, is the head person that's working children's services for the general. She and another lady run that office over there for children's support services. Based on the number of offices they would like, they think that they could do it somewhere around the 600,000 number, and we could fold that request into this current job without rebidding.
Is there time to get a bid in concrete that won't fluctuate?
Oh,
Come through?
Is he coming back to you with his numbers, solid numbers?
yes. Well, after he's presented, he came to me today at 3:45 with the lease. He got from the district attorneys. We couldn't move forward until we had a commitment from them. So if I get the commitment from the committee tonight to move forward, I'll go to the contractor tomorrow. I'll get Mr. Mankin to go to him and say, give us some hard numbers, and we should be able to work up some hard numbers. It's fairly easy, hopefully by next Thursday night by the full commission.
I would feel more comfortable knowing actually what it was going to cost than working off of a estimate, because in the past we have seen that fluctuate to our bad in different areas.
Sure.
That's just my thoughts on it.
I'm looking.
I'd rather know what I was doing than not.
Well, even if it, what he's willing to sign on the lease, he's already signed the lease and brought it to us. We'll have to execute it, but at $11,000 a month and $133,000 a year at 5, even if it took 6 years instead of 5 years.
I have no question on that part.
Yes, sir.
It's the expense of getting to the good part is my question.
Yeah, I understand, but which one comes first, the chicken or the egg? Give me the authority to go ahead and start the process, let him start working up the numbers, and I'll bring those back to you.
Are they willing, or are they obligated that they will do this for 5 to 6 years?
It's a 10-year lease. Yeah, like I stated previously, the state likes 10-year leases, and that's in this presentation that you have on your SharePoint. It's a 10-year lease.
Basically, they'll be helping pay for the building there, right?
I'm sorry?
Basically, they'll be helping pay for the building, right?
Well, absolutely.
Need a motion to approve this?
Well, that's what I'm asking tonight.
I will make that motion.
Just looking.
Just to clarify, because it's two things that you're doing. One is for the mayor to execute the contract, and then the other part is agreeing to move the money that we received off the sale of the 2 buildings into the old judicial project. Just move that money out.
So that's true. Mr. Chairman, we'd probably need 2 separate motions. One to execute. This will go to the full commission to execute the contract with the district attorney's conference.
I think that motion was verbatim what I was going to make.
Yes. There you go.
So your motion, Commissioner Johnson, is to authorize the mayor to execute this agreement. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. I hear a second. And this is to execute this agreement.
Second.
Commissioner Gooch seconds it. It's discussion.
Mr. Chairman, this is Robert Stevens. I have a question or two.
You're recognized. Go ahead.
I share the same sentiments that Commissioner Piercy does. I like to know the plan and kind of more of an idea of what the costs are going to be before we commit to doing something. It sounds like a really good idea. So I would like to amend the motion and just simply forward the concept to the full commission next week for discussion until we have more specific numbers on what the cost will be for the rehab and renovation of that third floor.
So you're making an amendment to the motion to, and if you would repeat that, or Mark, maybe you caught it.
He wants to amend the motion to just make it in the form of a discussion as far as opposed to an approval of the lease. Is that correct?
That's correct. We can make that decision next week if we have more information and with more solid numbers.
Commissioner, I have a question, if that's okay. If the mayor has the hard figures that Commissioner Piercy was talking about, and I think you're talking about by next Thursday's meeting, are you saying you're okay with it to go forward then, or is that the information you're asking for?
It is. I'd feel a lot more comfortable if we had something on paper that said, here's what it's going to cost to renovate this third floor before we just commit to something.
Okay, you've heard the amendment. Do I hear a second to the amendment?
Second.
Okay, I have a second, Commissioner Piercy, on the amendment. Now, my understanding is, and make sure I understand it correct, is that you intend to present the full commission with the figures on Thursday.
I will do my best. It's up to them to in post haste get those numbers for us, but they've already roughly identified those numbers over the last couple of weeks. That's how they came up with the estimated 600,000. So I think they could probably firm those up for us by next week, I would hope. And then I guess at that point in time, we'll come back and ask that we transfer that money. My suggestion to you is Finance Committee is to take the money that's already in ending fund balance that came from the sale of the bank to shift over into this project.
Okay, and I've got a couple other questions, if you don't mind. Commissioner Dodd, is it you and Commissioner Gooch, or Paul, are you also on, who's on property management? Okay, y'all three. Okay, so I'm assuming y'all have heard this discussion or something along these lines. Would you kind of let me know what y'all have actually talked about in property management on this? Or are you talking about doing this exact thing, just finding a lease service?
This is a culmination of what we've discussed thus far. Who the tenant is, the anticipated cost for remodeling, and the anticipated source of the revenue to do the remodeling. So this has come through property almost verbatim.
Okay, so this is nothing new to you
We've
guys.
not seen a lease. We've not seen a lease. Of course, it just...
Yeah, got that at 3:45 today.
We have not, we've not gone so far as to vote anything that's that solid yet. Conceptually, we've walked this through.
Yeah, you were aware of the $18 that I offered to them. They came back and have agreed to the $18 per square foot.
Mr. Johnson?
It was received very favorably, and that's a good point from Commissioner Stevens, that some sound numbers be involved. So everybody in property management that I'm aware of is comfortable with it, aren't they, Phil? You know, okay. Trey?
Commissioner Gooch, you got a comment?
But I would agree with both the Commissioner Dodd and Johnson that we have discussed this at length and felt very positive about the situation of leasing to the DA's office on the child support office. So hopefully we can move forward. I don't have a problem unless it kind of backs things up if we wait to the full commission to get harder figures.
Well, I'm kind of like you. I want to see a hard figure, same as Commissioner Piercy. If we don't have that Thursday night, of course, we can postpone whatever the full commission decides to do. But one other question kind of sticks in my mind, and I'm sure one of you three can answer this, is, and Commissioner Piercy brought this up, have y'all talked about having somebody else bid this, or we already got a hard bid from this contractor? I know he's renovating it to suit this tenant, so that could change things there, but I mean, why are we not rebidding it? I don't know.
Well,
or we don't need to.
It doesn't, I think it would be very complicated to bid it, go through the process while we're in the sheetrock phase of the other 4 stories, elevator, everything else, and to bring another contractor in on top of the one that's there with their crews going up and down on all the floors, and then you'd have just another contractor in this. I think that would be a real problem.
Commissioner Dodd, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you. We didn't necessarily discuss this in committee, but I think the fact that we have hard numbers on 4 floors will have a good average equivalent to deem the bid as worthy or not, or the more solid number. I definitely want to wait for the more solid number. I think this amendment will probably pass, but I think we can compare it to the other 4 floors and know if it's a reasonable number.
Not that I question your judgment on that, but if the same contractor bid the other floors and he bids this floor, how is there any comparison to an outside bid?
It's a comparison to if we valued the current bid as worthy and the next floor is equivalent, then logically it's an extension of the initial worthy bid.
But if you've never taken from the outside another bid, how do you know the first 4 were good?
The first 4 were done, were they PBA?
This is not us. This is the PBA. We turned this over to the PBA.
The PBA direction to design build to the point we are now, whatever that percentage is, 75% of the building was done by PBA. Through that logical process, then it stands to reason that the 4th floor will match those equivalent averages.
From the contractor, I would say it would.
What?
But if you only taste salt and you never taste sugar, you never know what sugar tastes like, just in a comparison to not letting anybody else bid a project. I'm okay with how it is, but I'm not seeing how you can compare the 3rd floor bid pay from the same contractor without getting another contractor to submit a bid and compare. There's no comparison.
What? Wasn't the other 4 floors bid?
What?
We not open bid by other vendors? I mean, it was done in a bid process. The other 4 floors.
The other 4 floors were bid out through the PBA. The architect was selected by the PBA, and that's who they chose to go with. And they had some difficulty getting contractors because all the contractors are busy right now. There's a lot of building going on in Middle Tennessee. This company is actually out of Kentucky. That was the best bid by far, the contractor that came in to get this building, and they're doing an excellent job and ahead of schedule. But it's a timing issue to try to go back through bids and try to select. Are you going to select another architect as well? You know, I think you're going to end up with your analogy of salt and sugar doesn't make sense to me.
I'm okay with it as long as we can get a hard bid to work
Yes,
from.
sir.
My last question, if the PBA handled all the other floors, why is this floor coming to us and not the PBA?
Well, the county commission only allows so much money to redo this building, okay? When I first came into office, Gresham Smith, under the previous county mayor and the previous county commission, had looked at repurposing the building. Okay, they had looked at $4.3 million, and then when I took office, I asked them to rebid it. It came in at $7.3 million. I put on the brakes, pumped the brakes, and I said, whoa, wait a minute. what are we doing? So we reevaluated it, came back in. The county commission says, here, we only got this much money. Go build the building with what you got. So we were able to do 4 floors and not the third one. The third one's been sitting empty, except for bringing, it made sense at the time this county commission decided to go ahead and modernize and ADA, make them all 5-floor restrooms accessible for future development, okay, on the third floor. And 1 office in the back, I believe, is included in this current bid. So it just makes sense to use the same architect, the same builder, and turn it over to the PBA, because all your wiring, all your HVAC, everything else, it'd be a bad mistake to go to another bidding during this process.
Okay,
That's just my opinion.
Any other questions or discussions? Commissioner Johnson, you're recognized.
Basically, see, we're operating on the premise that it's already been established, the operating, or not the operating, but the cost for these 3 floors. So what do you think might be any extenuating circumstances that would cause it to be any more or anything of that nature? So to me, it seems like it's basic. So why wouldn't it be about the same for the other floor?
Well, and Commissioner Dodd, you can probably, since you're in the construction business, we must be aware, what I've heard just over the last 2 or 3 weeks in talking with the contractor this week at Community Care. We're getting ready to start that process out there with the contractor on the grant that we got from Christie Houston. But everybody I'm talking to said because of COVID, that lumber and cement and everything else has almost doubled. So we must be prepared for that.
Okay, we have a motion on an amendment that we need to vote on first. Is there any further questions, especially on the amendment? Hearing none, call roll on the amendment, Mark.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, we'll make that unanimous. Now, just so we're clear, we will discuss this at the full commission, and if we have the hard data at that time, that could influence us to go ahead with this project or not. Having said that, I'd like to go ahead and address the funding. You know, we can make this contingent upon the full commission deciding to pass this, but I don't want us to have to look at this for another month and put this off if the committee agrees to that. So is there any discussion about the mayor's recommendation to take the money that was?
We have a motion on the floor.
Okay, I'm sorry.
As amended.
I'm sorry. The motion as amended needs to be voted on first.
Yes. Are you ready for that?
Are there any other discussions on that, on the motion as amended?
Could you read the motion?
Motion is to send the discussion of the lease with the district attorney to the full commission.
Any other discussion? Thank you for straightening me out there, Mark. Call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Now to go back to the financing part of it, the mayor's made a suggestion that we use the money that was raised for the sale of the old coin building, I guess is correct, and to use that money for the construction, whatever that cost comes in, which is approximately 600,000, is that right? I forgot the exact number.
Well, the sale.
805.
805, what was it?
959.
805.
909.
805.
909.
909.
805, 909 is the money that he's talking about transferring into the other line item to do the finance of this if it passes the full commission. Is there any other discussion on this?
So moved.
Have a motion, Commissioner Gooch, thank you.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Johnson. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, this is Robert Stevens again.
Oh, excuse me, go ahead, Commissioner Stevens.
I have the same question or concern as I had on the previous motion, which was until we know what we're doing, do we need to make a budget transfer recommendation, or should we just forward this concept for discussion until we decide we're actually going to do this? So I'm going to make a motion that we amend this motion and forward the concept of funding it through the proceeds of the sale of those 2 buildings and have the commission make that final decision next Thursday.
I understand.
Wouldn't the concept be in the form of an amendment? And then you vote down that amendment if you don't fund it or don't decide to do it?
Well, that was my question, Commissioner Stevens. The way I thought we were discussing this is basically we wouldn't make this unless the full commission approved the mayor signing the lease. And once that's signed, then we'd have to look at the money transfer. Anyway, this would make the money available if the lease was okayed by the full commission. Commissioner, our Vice Chairman Gooch, what was your intent on the motion?
Just to use the proceeds of the building to pay for this renovation.
Okay, it wasn't contingent, you didn't make it contingent upon the commission approving the lease? That wasn't part of your motion?
Well, I can make it part of the motion if we need to.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out whether we need this amendment or not.
Well, I know your purpose was to not have to come back and revisit this. So if it would help out Commissioner Stevens, that I can make it contingent upon what we need to.
Commissioner Stevens' question, if he does that, would that be agreeable to you and you withdraw the amendment?
It would, but the way it was worded originally was that we were transferring the money. And as long as it's contingent on us entering into the lease agreement and being discussed next Thursday night, I'm fine with withdrawing my motion for the amendment.
I agree with you, Commissioner Stevens. So, Commissioner Gooch, you agree?
I will reflect my original motion to reflect that change.
Okay, and my second agrees to that too. So the amendment's been withdrawn. We do have a motion and a second, and it's basically to approve the mayor's suggestion on the financing of this if it is approved by, it's contingent upon approval by the full commission of the lease. Is there any other questions or comments on this?
I guess I got a comment. Are we doing a budget amendment or are we not doing a budget amendment?
Only if they approve.
We are, but it's going to be contingent upon the prior motion passing from the full commission.
You're not sending a budget amendment to commission? Is that the motion?
We are.
Oh, I thought we will have one ready.
Okay. I mean, that was my thought, is you do the budget amendment, and if you don't approve the lease and the funding of it, you just vote down the amendment. That's how you solve the problem on the commission side.
Right. And
you just don't approve the amendment. So, but I need to know what to prepare for next Thursday is what my question is. I can understand the contingent in this meeting, but I need to know what needs to go to commission.
Well, you need to have the amendment ready to go if the mayor's lease agreement is passed by the full commission. If it does, then you'll have the agreement for the financing available.
Okay.
If it is not, then we'll stop right there.
Got it.
Is that understandable with the rest of the committee? Okay. I don't hear any other comments, so I'm going to ask you to call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Is there any other business? Hearing none, guys, we're adjourned. Thank you.